Good morning, and welcome back to another episode of the Mysticism Decoded Podcast. This is your host, Aleph Lev. Wanted to pick up with the narration and analysis of the gateway process. Took one episode off to speculate on what might be Israel's secret weapon. Do they have the ability to induce earthquakes? If you're interested in that, check out the last pod. I think it's some interesting food for thought heading into what's looking more and more like World War III. But let's continue now with subatomic particles, section 20 of the gateway process. The behavior of subatomic particles provides an interesting example of the phenomenon of clicking out, discussed in the preceding paragraphs. In an article prepared for Science Digest magazine, Dr. John Gliedman mentions the way in which subatomic particles communicate with each other once their energy fields become entrained as a result of colliding with each other. The communication concerned is, of course, postulated to be occurring during the click-out phase, in the oscillation of the energy fields comprising the subatomic particles concerned. It is this cause which accounts for the cross-communication at what, in terms of time-space velocities, would seem to involve speeds in excess of light. In reality, Einstein's theory of relativity is not being invalidated, but rather the communication concerned is taking place outside the dimension of time-space to which the theory of relativity is strictly confined. So an important point to bring up here is this entire topic is something that caused Einstein anxiety, for lack of better words, but he didn't like it. Essentially, he called it spooky action at a distance because it seemed to be communication that exceeded the speed of light. But what this paragraph is stating here, it's not that Einstein is being proved wrong necessarily. It's not that the speed of light is being exceeded, although we're also going to see in a moment that speed of light can be exceeded as well in certain situations. But the communication is happening outside the time-space dimension. So in modern parlance, we have the terminology entangled particles. Where the particles are entangled, you can move them to opposite sides of the universe, but they communicate instantaneously. So this also goes to the point of ESP, meaning all points in time and space are connected, because as we've discussed earlier in the gateway process, everything is energy. God is energy in a state of infinity, and anything that is not in a state of infinity is confined energy, so that it has its own frequency and as a byproduct location, but everything is overlaid over that infinite energy. The entire holographic consciousness, the holographic torus, holographic universe, it is still built on the foundation and overlaid by that infinite energy, which also is essentially permeates all time space. So this is a confusing topic whenever you first look at it, but whenever you get into it, it really does make a lot of sense. The communication is happening outside of the time-space dimension, and thus seemingly happens faster than the speed of light, which doesn't invalidate Einstein, but it really just adds a layer to things. So this is known as spooky action at a distance in Einstein's language, but we can start to understand how and why it works. Specifically, Dr. Glideman tells us, quantum theory postulates a kind of long-range Siamese twin effect whenever two subatomic particles collide and then go their different ways. Even when the particles are halfway across the universe from each other, it says they instantaneously respond to each other's action, and in so doing, they violate relativity's ban on faster than light velocities. Indeed, regarding attempts to quantify what is known about the behavior of energy in dimensions apparently outside of time-space, Bentov speaks about courageous physicists who are working on hypothetical particles called tachyons, which can move at speeds higher than light. The speed of tachyons start just above the speed of light and range all the way to infinite velocities. So in the first half of this paragraph, it's saying that communication occurs outside the time-space dimension, and thus the speed of light, which is restricted to the time-space dimension, is not being violated. However, there may also be certain types of particles called tachyons, which start at higher than light speeds and go to near infinite. So I wanted to dovetail this paragraph, subatomic particles, with what is known as CERN. So CERN is a European institution where they have a piece of equipment called the Large Hadron Collider. And what they do in this piece of equipment, or that's the understatement of the century, it's this huge torus-like machine where they're basically smashing particles against one another to try and see what new particles are able to be produced. So you can imagine that with machinery like this and the advancement of science, that it's only a matter of time before they are able to find the tachyon, assuming they don't already have it, so to speak, and it is just suppressed information and technology, like so many other things are. But CERN, it's come under a lot of scrutiny. Some of it is justified, some of it is probably not justified. We don't know exactly what it is they're doing there. We have a public mission, a public agenda, but there's every reason to imagine that there is a hidden private agenda as well. And among the speculation out there for what this private hidden agenda is or may be, partially certain individuals have speculated, and again, this is speculation, that one of the goals of CERN is to be able to study and produce stable black holes, which may start off as microscopic, but given enough study, could be learned to be expanded and remain stable to create what is known as a wormhole or an Einstein-Rosen bridge. So I thought it would be fun to read CERN's statement on these black holes to see what they're putting out there in the public. And again, it's speculation as to what their hidden agenda may be. But if you understand society today in 2024, we're in a time past COVID lockdowns, And we've seen the government, I think, at its height of abuse and power, where a lot of their decisions, actions, and motivations are righteously being questioned. I don't think that you can summarily dismiss that CERN might actually be looking into this on the inside. So let's take a look at what they have to say about here in terms of microscopic black holes. Let's make this a little bigger. Nature forms black holes when certain stars much larger than our sun collapse on themselves at the end of their lives. They concentrate a very large amount of matter in a very small space. Speculations about microscopic black holes at the LHC, that's their machinery, equipment, refer to particles produced in the collisions of pairs of protons, each of which has energy comparable to that of a mosquito in flight. Astronomical black holes are much heavier than anything that could be produced at the LHC. According to the well-established properties of gravity, described by Einstein's relativity, it is impossible for microscopic black holes to be produced at LHC. I'm probably going to call BS on this. Whenever you go to such extreme language and say it's absolutely impossible, it sort of makes you look a little bit defensive and like you're trying to hide something. A more reasonable type of language to use would be, it is extremely highly unlikely. But whenever you start using words like impossible, I think it's a bit of a red flag. There are, however, some speculative theories that predict the production of such particles at LHC. All these theories predict that these particles would disintegrate immediately. Yeah, unless you also figure out the technology to keep them stable and expand them. But you didn't mention anything about that here. Black holes, therefore, would have no time to start accreting matter and to cause macroscopic effects. Although theory predicts that microscopic black holes decay rapidly, even hypothetical stable black holes can be shown to be harmless by studying the consequences of their production by cosmic rays. Whilst collisions at the LHC differ from cosmic ray collisions with astronomical bodies like the Earth, in that new particles produced in LHC collisions tend to move more slowly than those produced by cosmic rays, one can still demonstrate their safety. And I think that's a fair enough statement. If an Einstein-Rosen bridge is an AKA to a black hole, is an AKA to a wormhole, is an AKA to time travel, there is likely methodology and protocol in order to make them safe and stable to be used. Because as I've mentioned in previous pods, we do have in Kabbalah and Merkabah texts allusions to something akin to wormholes and time travel, things of this nature. So it's not that they're inherently unsafe, it's just that in the public sphere, in mainstream science, we don't necessarily understand their implications. The specific reasons for this depend whether the black holes are electrically charged or neutral. Many stable black holes would be expected to be electrically charged since they are created by charged particles. In this case, they would interact with ordinary matter and be stopped while traversing the Earth or Sun, whether produced by cosmic rays or the LHC. The fact that the Earth and Sun are still here rules out the possibility that cosmic rays or the LHC could produce dangerous microscopic black holes. If stable microscopic black holes had no electric charge, their interactions with the Earth would be very weak. Those produced by cosmic rays would pass harmlessly through the Earth into space, whereas those produced by the LHC could remain on Earth. However, there are much larger and denser astronomical bodies than the Earth in the universe. Black holes produced in cosmic ray collisions with bodies such as neutron stars and white dwarf stars would be brought to rest. The continued existence of such dense bodies, as well as the Earth, rules out the possibility of the LHC producing any dangerous black holes. So, I do think that that's fair. I don't think that there's necessarily danger in what the CERN is doing. I do believe that there's hidden research going on that's not public that likely has to do with keeping these black holes stable, being able to expand them. What's on the other side? Can you control them to go to any point in time and space, past, present, or future, any location? All these different sci-fi sounding ideas. But if you've been listening to me from the beginning, you know that my stance is that we live in God's imagination, which is equivalent to a computer digital simulation, so that anything is possible. And obviously in Kabbalah and Merkavah, where I am translating it through the prism of ufology, modern technology, and modern science, we do know that black holes, wormholes, time travel are alluded to in these ancient texts, as well as spacecraft interactions between ET, aka Anunnaki, with humans, so on and so forth. And in this pod, we will get to those texts. But if you're watching this episode and this is the first episode you're seeing, what we are doing is we are starting off with going over this gateway process document, which helps set the foundation for what the nature of reality is, that we live in God's imagination, the concepts of energy and infinity versus confined energy, so that we can accept these ideas of things I just mentioned, ET, human interaction, UFOs or UAPs, time travel, space travel, being able to perceive the past, present, and future. So this document lays all that out. And then in my book that I wrote, Connect to Source, which compares this gateway process document to the first book of Kabbalah, the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Creation, I show where they are essentially describing the same things, where the gateway process does it in modern technological terms in modern English. The Sefer Yetzirah is doing it in ancient Hebrew in poetic, enigmatic terms, but if decrypted correctly, they are talking about the same things. And this is really in reference to the creation of the universe and the creation of what is known as the golem, which, if someone has heard of it and they are familiar with it, believe that it is a mythical folklore figure. But I submit to you, as is a major component of my book, that the golem is 100% unequivocally real. It is not mythology, the science of which is laid out here in the gateway process, which we'll see when we get to the section called patterning. And it has its applications in the Sefer Yetzirah in creating the golem. So as I said in the last pod, now that we got through the early stages of the document where it had to set up its own foundation with biomechanical models and whatnot, that I wanted to start doing each paragraph as its own individual pod. For the most part, at the end, we're going to get to some shorter sections that it's going to make sense to group together again. But I want to leave it off here for today. On the next pod, we'll start off with section 21, dimensions in between. And I think I'll be able to make some fun analogies to you guys regarding the old Disney movie Alice in Wonderland, which I mentioned previously. but I would like to get into it in a little bit more detail, and I will probably do that on the next pod here, Dimensions in Between. So that will be a grand old time. I hope that you guys join me on that one. And if you liked what you heard here, just like everyone else asked for, I'm a new channel. I'm just starting out. I'm looking to grow. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. It does make a huge difference in whether or not YouTube will show this video to anyone or not in search results. So if you'd like to help promote someone that's bringing information in a way that no one else has or is willing to, from a Kabbalistic perspective, tying together modern science and ufology, please help your boy out and hit that like, subscribe, comment, share with your cousin who's probably sitting around doing nothing, watching TV. Give him something worthwhile to do. And you can feel good about that for yourself as well. So till next time, that's all, folks. Aleph Lev out.